Hello and welcome back. This is Elisa Ruffin with Leading Educators, and you are on the Grade 11 ELA Unit 6 Lesson Video Series. We are in Week 8 and we're on Lesson 37, and I hope you're ready for another great day of activities. We started a few days ago, House Painting, a new short story that's fictional by Samantha Chang, and so far you've engaged in a full first read of the text, completing annotations, a summary, and responding to questions. And you've also done a close read, diving a little bit more deeply into the text and unpacking its meaning and examining its characters. Today, we move on to our analysis of the text, doing an additional skimming of the text and responding to some thought-provoking questions that I hope that you will enjoy. Before we get to that part, though, let's make sure that when we're done here, that we're sharing our learning with a family member, caregiver, or friend, doing the fluency activity using a page from the text, an additional 20 minutes of reading a day of a text of your choice as well. If you recall, we are actually moving to the part of the lesson which I hope that you really enjoy, and that's the riddle of the day. And this week we have been focusing on riddle poetry. A lot more difficult than the riddles we've been doing so far, and challenging, but I hope rewarding as you all figure them out. So now it's time to gather the whole group around, if that's what you guys have been doing, so that you all can put your great minds together and figure out the riddle for today. Again, if it's you because you like an individual challenge, it's time to focus, buckle in, and get ready. Here we go. Voiceless it cries, wingless flutters, toothless bites, mouthless mutters. This particular riddle is by J.R.R. Tolkien. He wrote Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, etc. And it could be a tough one, folks. I'm going to read it again. Voiceless it cries, wingless flutters, toothless bites, mouthless mutters. So again, using those same strategies you did in the word association, think about what would have all of these things in common. That's the only hint I'm giving you today, folks. If you need some additional time, it's time to pause, because I'm going to give you the answer. The answer to this poetry riddle. The wind. The wind is voiceless and yet it cries. It flutters. It bites. All right, so think about, we live in Michigan, folks, how cold it gets, that biting cold. It's, and mouthless it mutters. So the wind makes some very distinct sounds. You can even put howl in there if you wanted to, right? So it's the wind. Now that we've gotten all warmed up, let's make sure we have our materials for today. You need the house painting text again. You need your learning packet. Turn to Week 8, Lesson 37, and the note catcher that goes with it. A pen or pencil, and remember, a smartphone or mobile device is always optional if you prefer to access the text digitally. Background information, as I said from the top of the video, it's written by Samantha Chang. It's a piece of narrative fiction. And it's focused on a main character who is wrestling with this idea of desire and expectation and duty. Connected to the essential question for the unit, what do stories reveal about the human condition? And more specifically, how do people manage conflict between duty and desire, as our main character attempts to do? Our learning target for today. I can evaluate the thoughts, feelings, and actions of the story, of the characters in the story, and I can connect the plot and theme of the story to the essential question and theme of the unit. So we're bringing in that essential question more directly today, and we're starting to do some evaluating, not just observing. And that's a key part of analysis. So we're going to do a skimming of house painting in order to make sure that we can do this analysis. And today you're going to be thinking through, what do characters do to manage the conflict that exists between their own desires and the expectations of others? That question should sound familiar as well, because it is the guiding question for the text. So you're going to be doing the guiding question and essential question today. With your family member, caregiver, or friend, talk about the following question. What do you think painting the house represents in this story? You're going to then move on to the right section. You're going to identify 3 places in the text that reflect the conflict between a character's personal desire and the expectation of others. And you're going to record that answer in your note catcher. And then when you close for today, what aspect of the human condition does the story house painting reflect? And you're going to cite evidence to support the text. So remember our routine. Read, think, talk, write, close. So we've gone over all of those sections, and I'm going to model how to do them for you. So let's start with the think for today. What do the characters do to manage the conflict that exists between their own desires and the expectations of others? And you're going to cite evidence from the text to support your answer. Okay. So I have a couple of things here that are important to note. Conflict, right? So conflict, you can also substitute the word tension there. And then you're going to think about their desires and expectations. So there's two very different things. Okay. So I need to start first by choosing a character who is facing this conflict or tension, the tension between desire and expectation. And the reason why tension can exist there is if the desires that a person has is actually contrary to the expectations of the people they love them. So now there's conflict. Now there's tension. Okay. And then I have to identify what his or her real desires are, as well as the expectations that are placed on him or her by others. Okay. So how do we find out what a character's real desires are? They're either going to speak them to someone they trust in the story, or they may confide them to the reader because it's something that they're thinking through that they allow the reader insight into. Frances, she's one of the core characters of the story, and this particular theme directly applies to her. So this would be a good character to choose because of that reason, right? And so what is in the central part of the plot of this story is the relationship between Frances and her boyfriend, and her relationship with her family, her parents specifically, and what their expectations are. So that's a character I would suggest you focusing on, although there are other characters you could choose as well. But you're going to find some direct examples there, and you've already done the annotations and the example lifting from the text that will help support Frances as an example. Moving on to the talk section. What do you think painting the house represents in this story? You're going to cite evidence from the text to support your answer there as well. So represents here, another way to think about represents is the term symbolism, right? We've discussed symbolism previously. Symbolism is the use of symbols that represent ideas or qualities, all right? It's the use of symbols to represent ideas or qualities. So how might the act of house painting be viewed as a symbol for a larger idea? So think about that. How might the act of house painting be viewed as a symbol for a larger idea? So what comes to mind to me is the annotation about that we made about Annie's reaction, if you recall, to Way painting the house. So if you remember, Annie asked several times, why in the world is Way painting this house? And that really unnerves her. And one of our annotations or initial reactions to that was there must be more to this house painting than just house painting. Otherwise, Annie would not have reacted the way she did. So that right there, that preliminary idea and response is what you can revisit in order to really flesh out what that act of house painting might be, because we haven't answered that question yet. We know that it means something, but we haven't put our finger on exactly what it could mean. And that is what this question is asking you to do. You know that there's more than meets the eye. It's your time here in this section to identify what is the more. The last part of the activities that you're going to do today, write and close. And we're going to have this continuity, so we're not pausing because one section builds on the other, right? And so that continuity is going to help you move through this lesson more effectively. So in the write section today, you're going to identify 3 places in the text that reflect the conflict between a character's personal desire and the expectation of others. And you've already started down that path in your talk and think for today. And then in closing, like I said, you've identified a character who's in conflict. So all you have to do is find some further examples. We already know that. And then in closing, you are going to think about what aspect of the human condition does the story house painting reflect. So I can think about this question by thinking about what aspects of the character's experiences, thoughts, feelings, or circumstances resonate with me. What I mean by resonate is, what can I identify with? Have I ever been in a circumstance that's similar to those of the character in the story? It may not have been a dating relationship, but have I ever been in a circumstance where what I wanted was maybe different than what the expectations of people I cared about wanted for me? Okay. And if that's the case, that's going to give you insight into what aspects of the human condition the story reveals, right? Because remember, human condition are common experiences, relationships, emotions, and thoughts that human beings have shared, okay, or share. So if I can identify those in myself, then I've actually identified the aspect of the human condition that is on display here in the story house painting. Now it's your turn to do all of the above activities. You're going to read, think, talk, write. So you're going to read through the story again. You're going to think about what do the characters do to manage the conflict that exists between their own desires and the expectations of others. And with your family member, caregiver, or friend, you're going to talk about what do you think house painting represents, and then you're going to write 3 examples from the text that support your point of view. And then you're going to wrap up with your addressing the essential questions connection to the plot of house painting. If you need any additional help, remember you can always pause and replay the video as many times as necessary, or you can reach out directly to a teacher for support using the email information structure provided here. And when you are all finished with the day's activities, share your learning with a family member, caregiver, or friend. Complete the weekly fluency activity using a page from the text, and do at least 20 additional minutes of reading a day of a text of your choice. Hopefully you enjoy the activities for today. You are more than prepared to complete them. You have come to the end successfully of another lesson. Congratulations. And we'll wrap up this text tomorrow, analyzing craft and structure. Have a good one.